Hey everybody, welcome back to another video on the channel. Unfortunately, yesterday we had to see the Seattle Seahawks win on our home field at Levi Stadium. And what better way to kind of tame the pain than hold some optimism for this offseason and the draft? Because everything starts with the draft. When considering some of the takeaways from yesterday, I think ultimately what popped up in my mind was the trenches. We look at Seattle's defensive front. They had 8 sacks, maybe even 9. And this is a position that they have built up the last couple of years. And it goes both ways as well. The Patriots, their offensive line just got dirtied up, man. Will Campbell had a terrible game. The other rookie on the other side, the right side for the Patriots, had also not a great game at all. And at the same time, though, when you take a deeper look at it, the Patriots had 4 wins last season, and they're in the Super Bowl. This is the kind of flip that can happen from one year to the next. It has even happened in 49ers history as well. I wasn't born during this time, but as a little bit of a history buff and a 49ers fan, I know about the start of their Super Bowl dynasty. Like 1980, they had 6 wins, and then the year after, they flipped it around and started their dynasty with Joe Montana and Jerry Rice, went 13-3. Recently, 2018, that was the year the 49ers went 4-12. Jimmy G tore his ACL. The next year, they flipped it around, got to the Super Bowl. And we look at this year. The 49ers were kind of playing with fire all year. They had to outscore their opponents quite a bit. That 3-run stretch where they put up 40, it was Titans, Bears, and I believe the Colts. And they need to just really get better roster construction during the draft. Raheem Morris is obviously a great start. But I wanted to show you guys something quick. This is the recent drafts of the Seattle Seahawks. In the last video I made, we looked at the 49ers recent drafts, and nobody out of all the players got an A grade, any A grade at all. I think Dominic Puny was the highest graded player that I gave. But just taking a quick look, Gray Zabel, a guard, played great this year. Nick Emanwari, probably the steal of the draft, played awesome. And I'm going to nitpick some guys, but like Torrey Horton, before his injury, was slotted into the wide receiver 3 position in his rookie year, something that Kyle should take notes on. Caught quite a few touchdowns as well. They even used Robbie Oates as a tight end fullback hybrid. Like, he was productive earlier in the season. 2024, Byron Murphy, great pick. AJ Barner, awesome pick. DJ James has also been like decent as well. Productive. 2023, Devon Witherspoon, and then Jackson Smith and Jigba at pick 20. Man, that's insane. Derek Hall, great game yesterday. Honestly, one of the better performances for any player yesterday. Zach Charbonnet, just a reliable running back 2. Anthony Bradford, kind of a whatever pick. And then we spin it back to 2022. Charles Cross, a good starter. Boya Mafe, also a good starter, hitting free agency. Anthony Walker, Abraham Lucas. Like, this draft was absolutely insane, 2022. You look at the team yesterday, it has essentially been built from the draft with a couple additions like Ernest Jones and DeMarcus Lawrence. But man, they could have won the Super Bowl without those guys too, in all honesty. Like, all 6 of these picks are on the team, and they are great players. And that's what I mean when the 49ers really just have to swallow their pride and draft better. Get someone to come in try to acquire a scout if you can from another team that's been successful, like the Seahawks or the Rams. Anyways, though, it recently came out that the 49ers don't, or that they might not trade Mac Jones. However, I am not fully convinced of that report. I think it's just because they probably haven't gotten offers yet, considering the offseason has not even really started yet. And I still hold out hope that they will trade him. It's not like I'm against Mac Jones. I mean, this guy essentially saved our season, man. He was great. That LA Rams game, he was puking. He was touching his ribs. He was just a beast, a modern day warrior. Anyways, we look at some teams that might need a quarterback. Of course, the New York Jets pop up. Unfortunately, Dante Moore isn't in the draft anymore, so they're kind of stuck in limbo with the second pick. They could go in a lot of directions here. I think Arvil Reese makes the most sense. However, I don't know. We'll see. I mean, you could argue Cleveland needs a quarterback. Miami could be a suitor. The Vikings as well. And also the Colts, depending on the severity of Daniel Jones' injury. You could also make an argument for the Falcons. Ultimately, I think the New York Jets, I do not think that they will give their 33rd overall pick to us, because that is, of course, essentially a first-round pick, fringe first round. I think the 44th overall pick makes the most sense, a early to mid-round pick for Mac Jones. And we force this trade. And let's get into it. Let's get into the draft here. So we start off, and some players have already been taken. Kenyon City, Casey Conception, Vega Ione. And I don't mean to keep ignoring Caleb Lomu. He is a great prospect. I just don't know if I want to go tackle this early. Again, the offensive line as a whole is a position of need, but I hold the view that guard and center are by far more of a liability than our tackles at the moment. I think he will be in my next mock draft, though. Same kind of feeling with Monroe Freeling. He is a player that I don't hate. I just think that his value is a little bit higher than where I would draft him at. Let up 3 sacks this year. Doesn't have the best run blocking grade. Good pass blocker. We look at Caleb Lomu is a better pass blocker than run blocker, which is awesome. Of course, I drafted Akeem Mesidor in the last video. He is probably the player that I want to draft the most. There's two, actually. And because I went with Mesidor in my last mock draft, I am not going to go with him this one. As much as I really love this guy, I mean, you look at the stats. 13 sacks, 50 hurries. Absolutely absurd production. There's a guy a little bit farther down the board, though, that I really like, and I talked about him in the last video, Emmanuel McNeil-Warren, because he is just such an excellent coverage safety. And I really want to pair a great coverage free safety with Malik Mustafa, who's a better run defender. And I think if we do that, our secondary will function a lot better. Maybe pick up a fourth corner that's better than Darrell Luter. But I think if we do something like that and potentially upgrade Renardo Green, I think if we did that, though, our secondary would be a great position for our team. We look at the force incompletion rate, 33.3%, pretty much at the highest percentile of his draft. Also a good run defender as well. Ultimately, guys, I think not much to say there. I think that Emmanuel McNeil-Warren is the pick. We look at some of the players that just get drafted. Emmanuel Pregnon, who is in my very first mock draft. Gabe Yakis, good pass rusher out of Illinois. R. Mason Thomas. Now, Eli Stowers is an interesting prospect because, in my view, he's the best receiving tight end in the draft. No doubt that Kenyon Sadiq is the best athlete and probably all-around player because Stowers does not offer a lot in run blocking. As you can see here, he doesn't even register. It's interesting because George Kittle, we don't know when he will be back, if it's potentially at the start of the season or mid-season, or maybe, who knows, he encounters a setback and misses most of the year. I hold the view that he'll be back at the minimum by mid-season. But at the same time, I think that Jake Tonjes showed enough in his playing time that he can take charge of the tight end position, at least for a little bit, until George Kittle comes back. It would be good to have a young tight end. Also, a lot of fans are mentioning Kyle Pitts. I think that would be an awesome scenario. I think he's going to get paid, though, honestly. His end of the season run was great, and I was actually at the international game. It was in Berlin between the Colts and the Falcons, and yeah, man, he's a good player. I definitely wouldn't mind that move at all. I just don't think he's going to end up a Niner. And ultimately, I don't think Eli Stowers is the pick there. There's a couple players in this range that I really like. I'll quickly highlight them and go over each of them individually. Zion Young is a good one. Lee Hunter, both kind of senior bowlerizers. And Romello Height. Also like some of the corners here, Colton Hood and D'Angelo Pons. I just don't know if we need one that badly to take one in the second round. Also, D'Angelo Pons, great corner, but he's a bit smaller. So it's kind of a scenario where, like, where would he play? Would he take over Renardo Green? And would he have two undersized corners on the team in Pons and Stout? Anyways, Zion Young is a great pass rusher. Played a great season this year. He played every single game, 8 sacks, 17 hits, 32 hurries. Has improved every year in college, which is a good predictor. Is a good run stopper and pretty much equivalent in pass rushing as well. And we kind of flip it to Lee Hunter, who is the defensive lineman, 6'4", 330. And he is a very good interior defensive lineman as well. Has only improved his last 2 years. Had his best year this year, though. Similar numbers to last, but we look at some of the metrics. Run defense grade of 84.5. Pass rush grade of 72.1. Solid player. The player I like most out of the three, though, is probably Romello Height, because I think he is the best pass rusher, which is what the team needs. You know, we get after the quarterback, then the secondary won't be in as bad of a position as they have been. And very top of his class for pass rush grade in all pass rushing metrics, and a below average run stopper. But I think if we can develop, especially Alfred Collins, because he's just such a big human being, if he can develop his run stopping ability, and of course we'll have Michael Williams back, who is a great run stopper, I think that'd be awesome. I kind of prefer Romello Height a little bit more than Zion Young. I wouldn't fault you for taking Zion Young or Lee Hunter. LT Overton is just a player that I haven't watched a lot of, so I don't know. And when looking at his metrics, they don't necessarily look the greatest. Again, like I said, Colton Hood is a corner that I like. I do prefer D'Angelo Pons. Like I said, though, it's just, I mean, I hate to be the guy that's picking on size. I wouldn't hate us drafting him here. Again, it's just at this point we would have two corners under 5'10" or 5'9". Actually, I think Upton Stout is 5'8". A lot of good corners in this range, though. Anyways, I think that the pick here ultimately will be Romello Height. Again, very productive player. His last 3 years has improved every single year, and absolutely gets after the quarterback, man. 42 hurries is nothing to scoff at there. Part of that very good Texas Tech defensive roster. Now, we come into this territory of a couple wide receivers. And admittedly, I like Surratt a little bit more than Omar Cooper. I think I mentioned that in one of my previous videos. Omar Cooper gets a little bit more separation. Is smaller, though, whereas Elijah Surratt finds ways to win. It's not that he's bad at separating. He just finds different ways to win his routes. And like they mentioned here, is not the best athlete in general, but commands a lot of red zone production there as well. Omar Cooper is, again, very solid player. They both have almost equivalent yards per route run. Very different receivers, again, 6'2", 204. I'm also a fan of Antonio Williams. I wish we had another pick here because I would take him with potentially the 92nd pick, but I don't think he's falling in a lot of these mock drafts. Joshua Josephs is another great edge rusher. And in all honesty, if you didn't want to go Romello Height and you went with another player in the early second, you could wait on him and pick him up here. Again, he is a great pass rusher. Kamari Ramsey is a safety that is a good safety. Of course, we took Emmanuel McNeil-Warren, so he won't be the pick here, but is a great run defender. I mean, actually, great tackler more so than run defender. However, Max is a guy that I've been propping up for a while now. You look at the right side, and nothing jumps off the table there. But this is a guy that's been playing football for 3 years, has only been a 2-year starter, and is so fast for his size. He's like 6'6", 330. His kick step is nasty, is a great pass blocker. I've often deliberated quite a lot over this pick because, in my opinion, it's a wide receiver or Max. I have taken Elijah Surratt. I took him in the last mock draft at this position. I think here, though, I am going to take Max again. Max Ahian Anchor. Just such a high upside pick there. And, again, I was mocking him in the 5th round. Now he is in the 2nd round. 2 great players go right before us, Antonio Williams and Jacob Rodriguez. Antonio Williams gets a lot of separation. That is where he's very good. And he is a slot player. I wouldn't have minded picking him up there. I am almost tempted to go with Skylar Gill-Howard here, a guy that I talked about in my draft targets video. He's a little bit of a tweener at defensive line, 6'1", 290. But again, you look at the pass rush grade, and he is a slightly below average run defender as well. And this is a guy that could turn out very solid for the 49ers. Malachi Fields is the other player I would consider here. There was a clip of him tracking a ball at the Senior Bowl. He was kind of a little bit of a Senior Bowl riser. His ADP shot up a little bit. I don't think he's particularly good at any one thing, though. You would like the grade versus man coverage to be a little bit higher. Mikhail Kamara is another player I would consider, although I don't want to take two edge players this early. Again, he had a lot more production last year, but this year he was used in different ways, deployed in different packages, and of course played a big part in the Natty. Jashwan Barham is an interesting prospect here. Better run defender than a pass rusher. And has a little bit of a smaller size, though, but is a younger player. Genesis Smith is another player I talked about in my last video. I believe I actually took him, who I really like as another coverage safety. We did take a safety in the first round, though, so that is not going to be the pick. I think ultimately I adhere to what I said at the beginning of the video, building up the trenches, solidifying them, getting good players on the top part of that depth, but also on the bottom part of that depth. And I think Skylar Gill-Howard, again, he did suffer an injury, and I don't want to draft a lot of injured players. However, I think at this position in the draft, he is one of the better. We look at defensive linemen, and I think it really drops off after him. We have Grayson Halton, Albert Regis, and I think it really drops off after Tim Keenan. I think Skylar Gill-Howard is a good pick there, and that way too, we think about pairing two players from the same college. The Rams did that a couple years ago with Fisk, and I forget the other guy's name, and that worked out super well for them. Anyways, now we have our first fourth round pick. We have a big clump of them, 127, 133, 138. That is 3 picks in the next 10 picks. So this is a prime spot for the 49ers to probably take 2 players of positional need and then 1 dart throw, which is, I think, exactly what I'm going to do and what I think they will do. They could also trade one of these picks. I think the first one you take here is Kalen Rutledge as a depth guard piece who could potentially compete for a starting role. Of course, Burford is probably leaving, and you look at some of these metrics here. Kalen Rutledge tops every single one. He's in the top percentile. Has not let up a sack. Has let up 2 sacks in the last 3 years. You think of the Georgia Tech offense staying on the field with long sustained drives. Kind of reminds me of the 49ers. I think he is a solid pick right there. And now we have pick number 133. Of course, we still haven't got a wide receiver yet. And there's a couple to choose from. And I might choose somebody you guys might not expect. Jacoby Lane is interesting because he is he's like a contested catch guy who is not a very good separator. He's 6'4", 200, and again, like a very long receiver. Like I said, he lives for contested catches. Has only had 4 drops this season. He has a good grade against man coverage, good yards per route run. I don't think he is the pick here. I like Ted Hurst. He's a guy I mentioned in the previous video. Another kind of X receiver, 6'3", 195. Of course, he's playing in the Sun Belt Conference. I really don't think that should be too much of a knock on him. You think of other Sun Belt wide receivers. I mean, there's been a couple good ones. Like T.Y. Hilton originally played on one when his college team was back in a Sun Belt in the conference. I think FIU. And recently, Tez Johnson, he transferred from Troy, which was a Sun Belt team. So there has been production. Of course, those are small, speedier receivers, a different archetype. But Ted Hurst could definitely find a role in the NFL, 100%. But I think the receiver that they go with here is, and some fans may not like this, will be Bryce Lance. And this guy is like the ultimate field stretcher. If you look at his college tape, he is just a deep ball merchant, man. Like 3.57 yards per route run. That is the highest of any college receiver. It's just because this guy is deployed deep on like every goddamn play. But ultimately, that is really what we need. And when you think of the 49ers receiving room right now, we have Ricky Pearsall, Demarcus Robinson. We have a couple younger guys in Jacob Cowling and Jordan Watkins. Of course, Jawan Jennings is probably leaving this offseason. Kendrick Bourne is someone who might stay. We have a couple young guys we can develop, especially Watkins and Cowling. But again, at this point in the draft, we have not drafted a receiver. I would, like I've mocked before, I wouldn't hate drafting someone in the first round even, like Conception or Boston if they fall. I definitely do not hate taking Surratt with our second overall pick at pick 58. Of course, this was from the Mac Jones trade, or Omar Cooper. At pick 92, I wouldn't mind taking a wide receiver. If we were to take wide receivers, though, I would take either one early receiver and then one late if they decided to take two, or two mid-round receivers, like maybe one at 133 and one at 171. Ultimately, I think Bryce Young is the pick here. You look at some of his production, 2,200 yards in 2 years, 25 touchdowns. Of course, the conference he's in will be a big knock on him. But there's been some North Dakota State players who have translated fairly well to the league. Obviously, Gray Zabel, completely different position. But I mean, it shows that it's not impossible. Christian Watson was a player from North Dakota State who, like, pretty much had this same exact archetype, and he has fared out really well. Actually, Christian Watson, when he came back from this injury this season, played extremely well. Ultimately, I think this is the pick here. They take him at 133 and take that wide receiver that they desperately need. Pat Coogan is, man, I really like Pat Coogan, and he's another player I don't mean to ignore. You don't win Rose Bowl MVP as a center for nothing. Of course, he's a great center. He's not going to be the pick here. He will be in my next mock draft. I mean, just looking at his grades, has had production, has let up 2 sacks in the last 3 years, let up no hits, 10 hurries. Of course, he's a center, so he's going to allow a little bit more hurries than some other positions on the offensive line. But, I mean, pretty much tops the chart in everything. Struggles with a little bit of inconsistency, and great size, 6'5", 311. It's just, I know I have drafted an edge already. Malachi Lawrence, though, is probably... You guys will notice a trend in my mock drafts, and I'm not going to carry it forward too much, but Max Ihiananker and Malachi Lawrence are my absolute 2 favorite players in the draft. Malachi Lawrence, I think, is a great pass rusher, man. Like, I watched some of this guy's tape, and he gets after it. He has a high motor. Sometimes he's a little bit slow coming off his rush, but when he gets after you, man, he does it viciously too. 6'4", 250. So he doesn't weigh that much. He's more of a speed rusher, but he's like surprisingly powerful as well. You look at a picture of this guy, and he's insanely jacked. Pass rush grade at 89.5. Not the best run defender, but I think that's sufficient, and that is something that can be worked on. And has had some great games against some decent competition this year as well, like BYU, Texas Tech, Baylor. UNC as well. I think as much as I want to go Pat Coogan here, I think that my pick is Malachi Lawrence, who I really do like as a prospect, man. And that concludes the little clump of picks we have here. Kalen Rutledge, Bryce Lance, Malachi Lawrence. And like I said before, everything kind of starts with the trenches, as we saw in the Super Bowl. So that's why we've targeted edge, tackle, defensive line, guard, and another edge. That is 5. Wait, that might even be 6. That is 5 players in the trenches. Now, we have our 5th round pick at 171. And this is where I think you go with a little bit of a dart throw. I don't think there's been many reaches in this draft that I've done. I don't think Emmanuel McNeil-Warren is a reach. His ADP is 34 right now. And I actually see him more and more getting mocked to teams ahead of the 49ers. Teams I've seen have been even like up to the Vikings, but also recently the Chicago Bears. So I think with your last pick, again, we don't have a 6th or 7th round pick. I think this is where you take a dart throw. As much as you guys have seen me mock draft Treydon Stukes a bunch of times, it's this guy. As much as I want to take him again, I won't. This is, like I mentioned with Max and Malachi Lawrence, this is probably my 3rd favorite player in the entire draft. I think I can't believe he's this far down on draft boards, like a 7th round guy. You look at his coverage grade. He is a lockdown corner. He's a ball hawk too. Like a lot of 34.4 passer rating. Absolutely insane to find this value down the board. Was on that good Arizona defense with Genesis Smith. Ultimately, though, you look at some of the players. Like I said, I think defensive line falls off after like the mid 4th round. And I do want to take a corner here. On so much, but corner isn't of utmost concern for sure. Although I really want someone to replace Luter. I think because we didn't take one of the premier guys like Surratt or Cooper or even Antonio Williams or Zachariah Branch. I'm forgetting someone. Because we didn't take one there, I think that you take a shot here at another wide receiver. And you look at a couple. There's 2 that I'm going to look at. Not going to look at Savion Thomas. He is a speedster. I mean, 5'10", 192. And he's a special teams guy. Also, the one that I was going to consider is Brennan Thompson. He is a speedster. Takes the top off of defenses, which is what we need. It's just I'm a little bit torn with this because I really do want Jacob Cowing to turn into something. It's been 2 years now, and we've seen like little flashes of him, but he hasn't been able to get on the field. I don't know if I'm willing to take this 5th round pick on another kind of speed archetype. However, I think he's actually even a little bit faster than Jacob Cowing. Brennan Thompson is a good receiver. Don't get me wrong. What I like about him is even though he's a speedster, he doesn't really take many passes from screens. Of course, only 3 on the entire season. Again, had insane production, commanded 87 targets. The player that I'm more or less looking at, though, here is Kevin Coleman Jr., who is he played well at the Senior Bowl. Kind of cooked the Ohio State corner a couple times, Davidson, who I mocked in my first mock draft. And Kevin Coleman is a slot guy who has a high percentile receiving grade, good yards per out run, good contested catch rate. His size, 5'11", 180, is not bad. I think that I foresee him climbing up draft boards a little bit. At the same time, though, I'm just going to take a quick glance at some other positions here. Xavier Harris, like I said, I think the defensive line kind of falls off. I don't foresee defensive linemen this late having a great role on this team. Roman Hemby is actually a running back I quite like. Pivotal part of their run to the Natty. Just taking a quick look, though, ultimately, I think that actually, guys, also, I do really like Cole Payton as a quarterback. This guy has, I mean, look at some of the metrics there. Of course, he was playing in lesser competition. He's like one of my favorite quarterbacks of the entire draft. He is my quarterback 5. Of course, I there's no need to take one there. I think I take, or I guess we take Kevin Coleman here. It's between Kevin Coleman and Treydon Stukes for me. Again, I want to take a corner, but it's not a glaring position of need. We've already covered some of the secondary with Emmanuel McNeil-Ward. And draft Kevin Coleman with the assumption that he's a very crisp route runner. And, any wide receiver, any young wide receiver coming onto this team has a chance to have a role because of our wide receiver room. And, yeah, no better time like now. Like I said, good route runner. So we get a B-. That is like pretty much the highest grade you can get drafting on PFF. Anyways, though, a quick recap. At pick number 27, we take Emmanuel McNeil-Ward. He is on the big board, number 34, but an excellent coverage safety. And again, this safety class is deep. So, like I mentioned before, that's why I wouldn't be mad with either taking a wide receiver or an edge rusher like Mesidor. However, I think he is the best coverage safety in the draft. Then we take Romello Height with the Mac Jones trade. We get pick number 44 for Mac Jones. We get a great productive edge rusher. Then we kind of spin it back and take Max Ihian Anchor and a developmental player who could honestly potentially compete and be a plug-and-play starter right away, just because he has adapted so well and is such a speedy player for a big guy, and has like unbelievable technique. Just needs to put it all together, especially in the run blocking game, and I think we'd get a very good player from that. Skylar Gill-Howard, kind of slightly a little bit of a dart throw here. But we need more bodies on the defensive line, especially pass rushers, because I don't think that Alfred Collins and CJ West are particularly good at either pass rushing or run defending. I think they are sufficient. But we do need a standout on that defensive line again. Of course, Michael Williams is going to be back. A good run stopper, and why not pair him with a slightly below, above average run defender, but someone who could also get after the quarterback, man. I think that'd be awesome. Kalen Rutledge with pick 127. Again, a guard piece that could definitely compete for a starting spot right away. Has led up 2 sacks in the last 3 years. And Bryce Lance with pick number 33. This could be a contentious one, but just if you guys search up his highlights, it's honestly insane. Like I mentioned, they deploy him deep pretty much every play, and he comes up on top on a lot of them. Very intriguing wide receiver. Has the kind of prototypical X build, 6'4", and yeah, I don't mind him there at all, especially over someone like Jacoby Lane, who I think is a little bit more inconsistent. At pick 138, we get one of my favorite players in the entire draft, Malachi Lawrence, edge rusher for UCF, who had a great year, very productive, and is just an absolute demon of a speed rusher. And then with our last pick, was between Tre'Don Stukes and Kevin Coleman, but we take our second wide receiver of the draft in hopes that one of these guys can get playing time early on in the season or through midseason. And then kind of just like that, we drafted 5 players for the trenches. We addressed our safety position, which is, in my opinion, the biggest need besides wide receiver. Get a couple great edge rushers, a great pass rushing defensive lineman, which is rare to find. Kalen Rutledge, Malachi Lawrence, and honestly, I think this is a solid draft. I went away from drafting Elijah Surratt like I have in the last couple of drafts, and I think this is a key to get the 49ers to a better place, is to address the trenches. Of course, we have free agency as well, and keep in mind, as I mentioned before, this is why I took wide receivers late as opposed to early. Is I'm kind of doing this draft with the expectation that the 49ers will make a move in free agency. Again, Alec Pierce, Romeo Doubs, potentially Jordan Addison. Get like a wide receiver 1 for the time being. Slot Ricky Pearsall into the 2. And then have a rookie wide receiver or second year guy compete with DeMarcus Lawrence for the 3rd spot. And yeah, ultimately, that will conclude this video. Here's kind of a snapshot of every pick. And I will make 2 more videos this week. I'm not completely sure what they will be. I don't want to do another mock draft yet because I don't want to do too many of them so early. I may do a full first-round mock draft or a 2-round mock draft for every team. That might be a little bit longer of a video, but that is what I may do next. So thank you guys so much for watching the video. Sorry for all the fans and the result in San Francisco. Obviously not the result we were looking for. But, next time we can change the outcome by being there, by smashing free agency, and getting our blue chip pieces back, Nick Bosa, Fred Warner, George Kittle. And yeah, again, thank you guys for watching this video, and see you guys in the next one. Peace.